Hi everyone, welcome to the channel Sluggers Blue for your CAT VRC preparation. In this session, we shall be uh, discussing the passage which was asked in CAT 2018's second slot. I've titled it as metric-based performance assessments. This is the second part of this session. Okay, the first part of the session was where we had discussed the passage explainer, where I had explained the whole passage in detail. This is the second part where we plan to go through the questions and then the vocabulary list, and then finally the analysis and readings for this passage. Okay, uh, 40 such sessions or 40 such passages make up this course, and which is titled as an anthology of RCs for your reading comprehension preparation for the CAT. Uh, if you've not already checked out the video of the intro video of this, you can check the cue cards on the top right of the video of your screen, and which will lead you to the introductory video of this course. You can check that out later. Okay. Or and those of you who have not seen the passage explainer part, again, the link to the same can also be found in the top right section of the screen with the cue cards. Okay. So yeah, so with that out of the way, let's start with the questions. Okay, so let's start with the first question. Okay, so it says that what is the main idea that the author is trying to highlight in the passage? Right now, if you guys recall, in the towards the end of the first video, we had discussed the central idea of the passage, and I think basis that this should definitely not solving this question should not really be so much of a problem. So let's go through the options. Let's start with the options right away. Yeah? So the first option says all kinds of organizations are now relying on metrics to measure performance and to give rewards and punishments. Yes, this does seem to be in line with what the author has mentioned in the first few lines of the passage. He says that more and more companies, government agencies, educational institutions, and philanthropic organizations are today in the grip of new phenomena, metric fixation. Yes, so like many kinds of organization you can see here, right? Not all kinds. That's not something that is called for. You cannot say all, but yes, many kinds of organizations are now in the grip of new phenomena. So apart from this word or, that's not the only thing that is wrong with this option. What is also wrong with this option is that this organization's reliance, increasing reliance on these metrics is not what the main idea that the author is trying to convey here. This might be a distant inference, maybe, but it is definitely not the main idea. The author's main concern throughout the passage has been the detrimental effects that could arise out of adopting adopting performance evaluation, metric-based performance evaluation measures, right? That's what his concern has been. This is just something that he happens to talk, not happens to, like it's part of the argument, but that's not the main point. Okay. So yeah, so that's the first option. Let's come to the next one. Second one says performance measurement needs to be precise and cost effective to be useful for evaluating organizational performance. Maybe, but is that something that the author even talks about anywhere in the passage? See, guys, the author has pointed out the problems with performance management that is metrics based, and but nowhere does he talk about that about the requirement for performance measurement to be precise or cost effective. These are points that he has not mentioned anywhere in the passage, right? This point related to precision or cost effectiveness, none of this has been mentioned anywhere in the past. This is definitely an error of inclusion, option B. So you can eliminate this as well. I also write capital E with for option A as well, because we eliminated that too, right? Okay, let's come to the next one. C. Long-term organizational goals should not be ignored for short-term measures of organizational success. Now, this might have proved to be a slightly tricky one for many learners. The reason is this happens to be something that the author will actually agree with and is actually true as per the passage, as in the author's opinion would be true. But the point is, guys, that you need to note whether can you regard this as the main idea of the passage. I don't think we have enough reason to regard this as the main idea. The main idea of the passage is not that long-term goals should not be ignored. The main idea is that metric-based performance evaluation systems create the kind of situations where long-term goals end up being ignored, right? The main idea is about The main idea has been about the inefficacy, about the ineffectiveness of metric-based performance evaluation systems. The fact that long-term organizational goals end up getting ignored as a result of deploying those systems is just something is just a peripheral point that is part of the author's main argument, right? It is a supporting argument. It's a supporting argument, right? So it's not the main idea. The main idea has been about the ineffectiveness of the metric-based performance evaluation system, okay, and the problems that arise out of that. So this is a this could be an option that may have proved as a trap for many learners. This is a we call this option as TBNR. TBNR stands for true but not relevant. Okay, so it is true as per the passage, but it is not relevant to the question because it's not the main idea. So I'll write C here and we'll eliminate this as well with a capital E. Let's start with the next option, which says evaluating performance by using uh, measurable performance metrics may misguide organizational goal achievement. Yes, this does seem to be completely in line with the passage, right? It demonstrates because the option basically says that uh, it, it it talks about the ineffectiveness of the performance evaluation methods that are metric based, right? So far as their utility in attaining organizational goal is concerned. Yes, that's absolutely correct. So and hence you can mark this as capital S here. Okay. This highlighted part that you see here is basically the point of reference for long-term and short-term discussion that the author had somewhere here. But again, that does not make it the main point. It's just something that he has talked about. He, the long-term, short-term point has been used as an indicator to point out the ineffectiveness of the metric-based performance evaluation systems. Okay, I hope this is clear to everyone. Let's start with the next question. Okay, guys, so let's start with the second question. It says of the following, which would have added the least depth to the author's argument? Okay, now this is a particular kind of question that is extremely peculiar. You know, you come across questions which ask you to strengthen the argument, weaken the argument, but this one talks about like selecting the option that adds the least depth. Okay, now before we go and even check out check the options, I would rather want you to I would rather want you to pay attention to an example an example and then a framework that I want to demonstrate to address these kind of questions. Okay, so let's start with the example, an analogy, basically an anecdotal analogous example, to understand the idea of what does it mean to add the least depth to something or add the most depth to something. Okay, all right, so let's suppose you are at a you've gone to a supermarket. You're planning to go to a supermarket and you got your car. You get into your car with a couple of your friends. Let's say there are two friends with you, and friend A and friend B. And then when you arrive at the supermarket, the parking is almost full, right? There's no space left anywhere in the parking. There's just one spot somewhere in the corner where you rush, where you kind of rush towards in your car, and you're just about to just put the car into the spot when another vehicle comes in, another huge kind of a big truck comes in, and then almost bars your way, right? It bars your way so that your car will not be able to go in now. Neither and so neither will his vehicle be able to. So basically, you guys are stuck at a point. You know, no, neither of them are like both of you guys are blocking each other way. Okay, so far so good. I hope it's clear. Okay, now understand. Listen to me. And then you start getting into a heated argument with the truck driver. Let's say that it's a truck, and you basically make the following argument that I should be allowed to park here as I was the first one to get here, right? This is the argument you make with the truck driver that I was the first one to get here and hence I should be allowed to park here. So your proposition is let me park here. Your reason for that is because why should I be allowed to park here? Because I was the first one to get here. All right. The driver doesn't really listen to you. He's like, logical reasoning doesn't seem to work with him. And then that's when you look at two of your friends so that maybe they can come up with something to help you out, right? And you have two friends here, friend A, and let's say you have another friend, friend B, and both have their own ways of helping you. Both of them are gonna help you by providing you more arguments or by supporting you in this scenario, and then they provide their own arguments. Okay, let's start with friend B. So friend B, the manner in which friend B supports you is he basically says this: yes, he should be allowed to park as he was the first one to get here. Okay, so essentially what he has done is he has just corroborated your claim without providing any additional information. Your reasoning to be allowed to be parked there was because you were the first one to get here. His reasoning to allow to have you be allowed to park there is again the same, that yes, you because you were the first one to get there, right? So the only thing that he has done is he has just added majority here. He has not given, so far as from a logical reasoning standpoint, he has not given any additional reasons or any additional arguments in addition to what you already had put there already, right? So he's essentially repeating your point, right? Okay. Now you look at friend A. Friend A comes up with a different argument. He says, yes, he should be allowed to park as this is a spot for light motor vehicles. Please excuse the spelling of vehicles here. So, right? Now, friend A has definitely come up with a different argument to support you. Already you have said that you were the first one to get here, and friend B has also said that yes, he was the first one to get here. But friend A has come up with a different, another additional logic. He says that yes, he should be allowed, you should be allowed to park there because this spot is meant for light motor vehicles and not the truck that the truck driver is driving. Now you tell me, out of both of these two friends, whose argument would you find more helpful? It would probably be friend A, right? Because friend B is essentially just repeating your point. There's no additional information or logic that he has provided here. Friend A has provided some additional information, or if I may say, additional depth to your argument. Okay, and that's the point I'm trying to convey here. So if I were to select one out of these two options in terms of which of these provides the least depth, then obviously option A provides more depth and option B provides less depth, right? And hence your answer will be option B. Not for the question, I mean within between these two friends, right? So I hope this example is clear. Now before we again I'm sorry, we're not digressing. This is really important for you to understand, because once you're done with this framework, I don't think these kind of problems where you have to address your where you're supposed these least depth or most depth problems will be a problem for you. Okay, so let me take you through a very simple framework. Okay, it's not nothing too fancy. It's very simple to understand. Just pay attention. So let's suppose you have your author's argument. The author has basically made a point. I'm not trying to take any arbitrary example. Just assume that author has made a certain point. Some types of argument might strengthen the author's some types of proposition, right? And some types of data in facts and arguments might weaken his proposition, right? So there will be some arguments that will strengthen the proposition and some will weaken the proposition, right? So I've taken strengthens and weakens along the x-axis. Okay. Now I'm also taking a y-axis here. Now y-axis is what I call the continuum of relevance. Not every argument in the world will be completely relevant to the point that the author is trying to make, right? So the continuum of relevance is basically the more lower the point is, the more near the point is towards the bottom, the more relevant the argument is. And the more farther away the point is, the more on the top the point is, the less relevant it is, right? So more relevance, 100% relevance at the bottom, 0% relevance at the top. Okay. And note that this is perpendicular to the strengthens and weakens argument, because relevance is something that is independent of strengthens and weakens. An argument that is relevant can be an argument that weakens or can also be an argument that strengthens, and that's the reason why we have taken orthogonal, we have put them in a orthogonal shape here, pattern here. Okay, so this is your continuum of relevance. More relevance at the bottom, less relevance at the top. This is your continuum of strength, supporting or weakening the argument, strengthening the argument on this side and weakening the argument on this side. Okay, so far so good, I hope. Let's come to the next part. Now, in this continuum of relevance, there'll be three regions. The lowermost region would be essentially the region where the relevance is so high that is essentially just the repetition of the same point that the author has made. Right? Like the relevance is 100% relevance. What does 100% relevance means? Basically, you're repeating each and every word by word, right? That's what 100% relevance means. So that's what this would mean, right? So this is the region. This is what we'll call redundancy, repetition. This is the region of redundancy or repetition, where the relevance is so high that means there's no extra or new information being added here. Okay, let's go a little further up. And then just above the region of redundancy starts your region of relevance. This is where you're adding some extra information which has not been talked about in the passage but at the same time it is not totally irrelevant. Okay, so it relates to the argument that has been talked about. At the same time, it is not simply a repetition. It also gives some more information of relevance. So this is something that we will call as the region of relevance. What happens if you go a little further? Well, you'll go out of bounds. This is the region where you have gone so farther away from the author's argument that whatever discussion is being had here is not at all relevant to what the author talked about. Okay, so that completes the whole spectrum. Okay, at the lowermost region you have 100% relevance, which amounts to repetition and redundancy. At the topmost you have 0% relevance, which amounts to, well, totally irrelevant information. And right in the middle there's the sweet spot, which has which is the region where you have maximum relevance, the argument. Okay, now so this is the region. So now please pay attention here. Region of redundancy. If there's an argument, if there's an option that just repeats what has been said in the passage, does it add any depth to the author's point or the passage? No, it does not, because it is essentially just repeating. It's almost like friend B, right, who just said the same thing and did not give any new points, right? So it's just repeating, so there's no depth there. If the argument is totally out of bounds, has no relevance at all with the passage, 0% relevance, still it will not add any depth at all, right? So zero depth here, zero depth here. But if the argument is somewhere here, that okay, it talks about something that is still relevant to the passage but not the repetition of this exactly what the passage has already said, that's when you get the maximum depth basis relevance. Okay, so that means the in case of questions where you're looking for options which add most depth, you're looking for the items that are the most that are in this region. And then in case of questions where you're looking for the least depth, then you're looking for options which are either in this region, they are completely 100% relevant, that means they are basically a repetition of what's said in the question, or they are totally irrelevant, that means they are out of bounds. Okay, and then also, in fact, even in this region of relevance, like not every argument will be the same, right? If for example, if you have an argument, let's say you have option A is here somewhere and option B is here, then B becomes more relevant than A because it is more in the center, right? So your maximum relevance, it's almost like a bell curve that I've tried to draw here, right? Your relevance will be highest in this in the center, and will start decreasing as you go here until it becomes zero here, and it becomes zero on this side as well. Okay, all right. So that is, I just helped you understand the idea of depth, adding depth or not adding any depth to the author's argument on the y-axis, so far as in terms of relevance. Depth can also be construed in terms of strengthening and weakening the argument. How? Well, just have a look at the x-axis now. Come back to the x-axis now. So guys, whenever someone says that, okay, which of the following would add the most depth, there's an inherent connotation in that statement. Which of the following adds the most depth? That means, and the connotation is that of strengthening the author's argument. So when you say, okay, what will add depth to this? That means you're uh, you're very tacitly implying that you're looking for points which might strengthen as opposed to weakens. This might not always be the case, but generally, heuristically speaking, like generally, adding depth cases will be the cases where which strengthen the argument. And that is the reason why. So along the x-axis, it basically, the more on the right side you are, the more you strengthen the argument is strengthened, the more probability that it is adding depth. Not necessarily always. You also have to consider the y-axis, of course. But if you consider just the x-axis, then right side, as you go right, more you're adding more depth, and as you go left, you're adding less depth. Okay. So essentially, finally, what happens? What will be the region where you will be adding the most depth? The ideal place. The ideal place will be this, because you're trying to go as far right as possible, as far right as possible, and you're trying to remain in the center here to make so you're trying to make the best of the y-axis as well as the x-axis. So this is where you add the maximum depth. Okay, the ideal place. Provisional. Why provisional? Because, well, it depends on where the other options lie. Let's suppose your option A lies somewhere, I don't know, option C lies here, then you have option D somewhere else. So depending on the relative position of the options, like the ideal place, right? And yeah, so that's about the framework to tackle that can help you tackle add least or add most depth questions. Okay, now let's go back to the options. Okay, so we're going to use this framework here. Okay, the current case is that of figuring out which of the options would add the least depth to the author's argument, right? So yeah, it says, the first option says a comparative study of metrics and non-metrics based evaluation and its impact on the main goals of an organization. Okay, so guys, the author has said a lot about the negative outcomes of metric based evaluation, right? But he hasn't said much about judgment based or non-metric based evaluations, right? And then that's exactly, so there is, this, so far as this option A is concerned, it is definitely relevant, right? It is relevant because, well, you're still talking about the how these two types of evaluation methods might impact the main goals of the organization. It is relevant. At the same time, it is not just repeating information. It is providing some more new information, some new. The study might provide some new information in terms of comparing, because it will be looking at the negatives of the non-metric based, negatives or positives of the non-metric based evaluation as well, right? So it falls right here. Like option A will be somewhere here. This is where I'll put option A. Like it is completely in the region of relevance. So it will add, that means it will add depth. Okay. Coming to option B, an analysis of the reasons why metrics fixation is becoming popular despite its drawbacks. Now, this is still relevant, but it is going slightly a little farther than option A, right? This is the next discussion that the author might be interested to have. Like after he has discussed A, he might be interested to have the, okay, let's say, granted that metric fixation is actually um, you know has its drawbacks, but still, why is it becoming so popular? But it's not as relevant as A would be, but it goes a little more towards out of bounds, but not exactly out of bounds. It is still relevant. There is still some relevance here. So even this will add some depth, but not more than A. So I'm going to put B here. Okay. Neither of them are strengthening or weakening the argument, and that's the reason why I have not gone to the left of x-axis or to the right of x-axis. Okay. Let's come to C. Assessment of the pros and cons of a professional judgment-based evaluation system. Yes, that is something that is relevant, because it will help you compare professional judgment based evaluation system with metric based evaluation system, and also something that the author has not talked about, right? So in fact, option C will share this place with option A. It is as relevant and as adds as much depth, in my opinion, as does option A. So even C also adds depth, right? So guys, so far we can clearly see that we unless D comes up with something, like, we really hope D does not end up in the same place as A and C, otherwise we'll be in a dilemma. But so far we see that A, B, and C, all of three of them are quite relevant, and they are adding some depth to the discussion, to the author's argument. Let's look at option D now. Option D says more real life illustrations of the consequences of employees and professionals gaming metrics based performance measurement systems. It means like uh, examples like the ones that were mentioned relating to the police officer and the surgeon, right? So he's basically the option D is basically saying that more examples, more such examples like like the surgeon example or the police officer example would help. Now, guys, this is an option that lies not in the out of bounds region, but rather here. It lies right here because it is this information is redundant. This is something that the author has already talked about at length. He has given not one, two examples to demonstrate this. We don't need any more information on this so far as this idea is concerned, right? Because that has already been talked about at length in the passage. So and hence this will be the option that adds the least depth and hence will be your answer. Okay. So I hope, guys, the idea of least depth and most depth is clear to you, and this question was also quite clear for you all post the explanation. So yeah, so we're done with this question, and now let's move on to the next one. Okay, guys, so let's start with the third question. It says, what main point does the author want to convey through the examples of the police officer and the surgeon? Now, guys, before we move on to the options, we let's just take a note that these examples were mentioned in the passage. I think this was the point of reference. This is the point of reference here. If the rate of major crimes in a district becomes the metric according to which, so on and so forth. So basically, this is where the examples have been mentioned, and they have been mentioned mainly to demonstrate the idea of gaming, right? So the author has talked about three types of negative outcomes here so far as performance evaluation based on metrics is concerned. The first one was gaming in this paragraph, the second one was goal displacement, and the third one was short-termism. So these two examples have been given as examples of gaming, right? So that's the reason why. That's what he wanted. He wanted to basically demonstrate the idea of gaming via example, and that's why he has mentioned them, right? So we'll just take note of that, and now let's move on to the options. So the first option, it says that the main point that the author wants to convey through these examples is that metrics linked rewards may encourage unethical behavior among some professionals. Mm, this seems to be not very directly, but to a good extent to be on point. Because see, especially if you are able to relate the word unethical with gaming, right? So see guys, the thing about how gaming is different from goal displacement. Let's just talk about that. In case of gaming, it is encouraging professionals to maximize the metrics in ways that are at odds with the larger purpose of the organization, right? So maximizing the metrics in ways which such that they are such that they are contrary to the larger purpose of the organization. In case of goal displacement, what happens is, see, the author has characterized the goal displacement cases as unintended negative consequences. Okay, so this is not by intent, and also if you look at the example here, where he gives the example of teaching to the test, where the best known example is teaching to the test, where the teachers teach the students so as to pass the test and not necessarily to provide them a quality education. Now he is this example. Now it's not like the teachers are intentionally inclined to not provide quality education. It's just that they are trying to that they are just focusing on the small set of goals, measures, right? Which just happens to be the test. So in this case, it is unintended negative consequences. The negative consequences are not intended directly, as opposed to the case of gaming, where maximizing the metrics are being maximized in ways that are directly at odds with the larger purpose of the organization, and that's exactly what he's demonstrated here. Because if a surgeon refuses to operate on patients which who have more complex problems, that definitely means that that is at odds with the organization or the community of with the medical community, right? With the goals of medical community, right? So that's how these two are different. So the first option, which says metrics linked reward and may encourage unethical behavior. Unethical means gamified behavior, uh, behavior related to gaming. Among some professionals, that seems to make sense. Okay, so we'll just mark this as small s. Okay, because it's although it does seem to make sense, it is certainly not an option that will stands out directly, right? So let's come to the next one now. In case we come across a better option that can be marked as a capital S, we will go for that. Some professionals are likely to be significantly influenced by the design of performance measurement systems. Okay, guys, so option B, the main point why the author wants to convey through the examples of police officer and surgeon is that some professions are likely to be significantly influenced by the design of performance measurement systems. No, this is a distortion. This has taken a tangent direction. This option actually. The idea, guys, wasn't to anywhere in the past. The idea isn't to single out certain types of professionals. That these type of professionals are significantly influenced, and these type of professionals are not so significantly influenced. In fact, the author has not even tried to do that. His focus has not been on the various types of professionals or the how the metric based performance affects different professionals in different manners. Nowhere has the focus been on differential effect of the metric based performance evaluation system on different types of professionals. The focus has always been on the negative effects of metric based performance evaluation systems. The different types of professionals have been taken just as examples. That's not the point. That's not the core idea that around which the passage revolves, right? So this can also be eliminated here. Okay. Now, this will be an error of distortion, by the way. B will be an error of distortion. Coming to option C, the actions of police officers and surgeons have a significant impact on society. Well, it most probably does, but that's beside the point. That's not the point. The actions of police officers and surgeons do have a significant impact on society, but that's not what the author talks about here. That's true in real life. We understand that, but so far as the passage is concerned, so far as what the author, so far as the main point the author wants to convey via these examples is concerned, the main point is that of gaming. Okay, these are examples that have been given to demonstrate the idea of gaming, and uh, actions of these professionals, police officers and surgeons having a significant impact has nothing to do with gaming, right? So you can all again eliminate this very easily. Coming to option D, granted, yeah. So what main point is the main point the author wants to convey through these examples is that critical public roles should not be evaluated on metrics-based performance measures. Another distortion. So guys, again, granted that the examples mentioned happen to be critical public roles, right? Police officer and surgeon, they do happen to be critical public roles. However, they have been mentioned to demonstrate again the idea of gaming. Okay, this the paragraph or the point of reference has not has nothing to say about the propriety of the application of propriety of the application of the metric based system for the evaluation of critical public roles. Like what kind of roles, to what kind of roles should this be applied, and to what kind of roles should it not be applied, is definitely something that the author has not touched upon anywhere in the passage, right? So this is again another distortion, and you'll eliminate this with a capital E. Okay, so your correct answer here will be option A. All right, so I hope that's clear. So let's move on to the next question.
Okay, guys, let's start with the fourth question. The question says, all of the following can be a possible feature of the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001, except. The point of reference for this question is right here. Now, the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 basically relates to the example of teaching to the test, which was an instance, which was basically an example given for the goal displacement, right? Goal displacement idea, right? So the author talks about gaming, goal displacement, and short termism, three types of negative outcomes. Teaching to the test was the example for the goal displacement negative outcome, right? Now we need to figure out which of the following could be a possible can be a possible all of the following can be a possible feature of this act, except. So first of all, let's note that this is a triple TF scenario. That means three of these will be true. Like three of these will be the possible feature of this act, and one of them will not be a possible feature, right? And we are supposed to select this as the answer. This will be our answer. Okay. Now, the author has, while the author talks about goal displacement, he has characterized this type of negative outcome, that is goal displacement, with certain, well, particular characteristics, right? And before we go to the options, we're going to jot down those what those characteristics are. Okay, we will we'll write those down here. So, and then let's look at the point of reference. He basically says that these include goal displacement, which come in many varieties. When performance is judged by a few measures, that means, and the stakes are high, people focus on satisfying those measures, often at the expense of other more important organizational goals that are not measured. So these are the characteristics of a goal displacement scenario. What is the first characteristic? The first characteristic can be written as few measures. People focus on just a few measures. Okay, you'll have to bear with my handwriting. I'm sorry. Few measures at the cost of more important goals. Okay, at the cost of more important goals. That's the first characteristic of goal displacement. Second characteristic is that the stakes are high, right? The stakes are high. There are high stakes involved. Okay, so second characteristic is that there are high stakes involved here. And the third characteristic would be that these are unintended negative consequences, right? So we'll note, like, these are not directly intended consequences. So these are unintended negative consequences. Okay, really, really sorry for my handwriting, but you'll have to bear with this. Anyhow, so now the options, like, these have to be the character. This act, No Child Left Behind Act, has been given as an example of goal displacement. That means it's the characteristics of this act need to match at least one of these, right? So like the features of the act should match these characteristics. Okay, and the one option for which none of these characteristics match, that can be an exception here, right? So all of the following can be a possible feature of the No Child Left Behind Act. That means the option which does not match any of these will be your answer. Okay, I hope that's clear. So let's start with the first option. It says the focus is more on test taking skills than on higher order thinking and problem solving. Focus is more on few measures than on more important goals, right? So option A definitely fits the fits the first criteria. I'm going to label these criteria in terms of numbers: first criteria, second criteria, and uh, criterion, first, second, and third. Okay, so first option A matches with one. Option A matches with one. So you can eliminate this because this will not fall in the except category. So this is true. This can be a feature. Next, school funding and sanctions are tied to yearly improvement shown on tests. That means there are high stakes involved, right? Complete school funding and sanctions, all of that is tied to this. That means obviously the stakes are high. So this option matches with two. So again, this will also be true. Next, standardized test scores Option 3. Standardized test scores can be critical in determining a student's educational future. So yes, once again, we have high stakes involved. Once more, we have high stakes involved here because earlier it was school funding and sanctions which contributed to the high stakes. This time it is the student's educational future that's contributing to the high stakes characteristic, right? So again, high stakes are involved here. So again, this will also be related. This also relates to point two. So this will also be true. This will also be can be a feature. Next, uh, assessment is dependent on the teacher's subjective evaluation of students' class participation. No, guys, goal displacement, for which this act has been given as an example, is the outcome of metric based evaluations, right? Is the outcome of metric fixation, metric based evaluations, not the outcome of and if it is the outcome of metric based evaluation, it is not possible, it is extremely unlikely, almost impossible, that the assessment will be based on the teacher's subjective evaluation. This is just the opposite, okay, of the students class participation, and that's the reason why this will definitely be false. And it also does not match any of these. It doesn't match 1, it doesn't match 2, it doesn't match 3. It matches neither of these, and then it will be false, and hence, well, it will be your answer, right? So your correct answer will be option D. Right, I hope that's clear. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, guys, so let's start with question number 5. It says, which of the following is not a consequence of the metric fixation phenomenon mentioned in the passage? So again, not a consequence. That means we are once again at a triple TF scenario. That means three of them will be a consequence of the metric fixation phenomena, and one of them, which will not be a consequence of metric fixation phenomena, will be your answer. Okay, so three of them will be according to the passage, as per the passage, consequence of the metric fixation phenomena, and one will not be. The answer will not be. All right, well, let's start with the questions, with the options. The first option says, deviating from organizationally important objectives to measurable yet less important objectives. Guys, this was the instance for goal displacement, right? When you don't focus pay attention or focus your attention on organizationally important objectives, which in the case of teaching to the test was higher order thinking for the children, or quality education for those kids. And from that, shift your focus to measurable yet less important objectives like the test scores. Right. So that would be a case of goal displacement. So this is definitely a characteristic of consequence. This is a goal displacement scenario, and hence it will be a consequence of goal displacement. You can also write this here. So I'm gonna write GD here, right? So this is, and in turn this is true. So now it cannot be the answer. Let's come to the next option. Uh, Option 2 says short-term orientation induced by frequent measurement of performance. That is short-termism, right? And the example also fits quite well here. The example in terms of for short-termism was, uh, the problem is, just look at this point of reference. The problem is endemic to publicly traded corporations that sacrifice long-term research and development and the development of their staff to the perceived imperatives of quarterly report, right? So quarterly report is frequent measurement of performance, right? It is measured, it's a report that you get every quarter. So frequent measurement of performance. So short-term orientation that is induced by frequent measurement of performance. This is clearly the case for of short-termism, and hence again can be eliminated because this is also true. Next, improving cooperation among employees, leading to increased organizational effectiveness in the long run. Well, if there's some one thing, one idea that metric fixation, according to the author, cannot lead to, it is effectiveness in the long run, be it with respect to any kind of performance indicator, right? So that's something that the author will definitely not agree with or would not consider as the consequence of metric fixation, effectiveness in the long run, right? So and he has in fact never nowhere he has mentioned that metric fixation metrics based performance evaluations can lead to improved cooperation among employees or anything. But essentially, it's not given anything positive in terms of the value delivered by metric fixation, right? So this is definitely false and can be our answer. Okay, I'm going to mark it as capital S. Next, finding a way to show better results without actually improving performance, right? So this was an unethical one. Like this is where we're talking about gaming here, right? Option D. Like you basically, if professionals are encouraged to maximize the metrics in ways that are at odds, that are directly at odds with the larger purpose of the organization. So finding a way to show better results without, and also the examples fit here. The police officer example and the surgeon example fits here. Both fit here. So finding a way to show better results without actually improving performance. Yeah. So in both cases, they found a way to show better results, right, without actually improving performance. So yes, so that's correct. So this will be uh, the case of gaming. Okay, and hence is true and hence is eliminated. So your correct answer will obviously be option C. Okay, all right. So I think with that we are done with the questions. Let's move to the next section, which will be vocabulary. Okay, so to the vocabulary list screen. So guys, in this case, this is not the part of the video where we'll be going through each and every word right here, right? So what I've done here is simply just mark some of the words which I figured that some learners might find uh, not so simple or easy to understand. And I've listed the meanings of those words here on the right side. On the left side, you can check the word in the context in the sentence where it was mentioned in the passage, and on the right side you can see its contextual meaning. Okay, these meanings are primarily contextual in nature. Please note that. Okay, so that's about the vocabulary list. You might want to pause the video at this point of time and go through the words if you want to, because like I'll next move on to the analysis and reading section. Okay. Okay, guys, so the final slide, that is analysis and readings. So far as the RC analysis is concerned, the genre is economics and management. So again, if you face difficulty with the content in terms of the ideas discussed here, or in terms of the terminology here, you'll benefit from reading more content from this genre. It's the third RC from the genre, and readability of the passage. Okay, so not the RC. So this shows you the difficulty of that you may have faced in reading the passage. The RC is passage plus questions. Okay, and this is just passage. So readability, difficulty level of the passage in terms of readability was 8.6 by 10, basis a variant of the Flesh CAD grade level scale, so which is moderate to difficult, right? Almost bordering on difficult. Passage length 494 words, 98.8 words per question. That's pretty standard for CAD, more or less, because it's around 100 words per question plus minus 15 to 20% often. Idle time to solve the passage should have been idle time is the time that you would want to target for, not the time that you actually took, but idle time is basically the time that you should target. For passage, reading the passage 3.5 minutes, answering the questions 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, because except for one question, I think the rest of them were pretty easy and straightforward. So total not more than 8 to 9 minutes. Okay. Finally, I'll just give you a couple of suggested readings basis this content. So there's two articles that I've mentioned here. They are from the same source. This particular RC was also from the source from the website Aeon Essays, and you can and there are two more articles here, which are not exactly from the related topic, but at least from the same similar domains. So you can check these out here, right? So get some more exposure in this area in this genre. So yeah, that's about it. The links for these articles will be there in the description. Okay. All right.
Okay, guys. So in the course map, we have now completed. This was RC number 3, and with this RC, we have completed third RC. We have completed 3 RCs here in the first genre. 2 more RCs to go for the next genre, for this genre, and then we'll be starting with the second genre next week from Monday onwards. Okay, so yeah. All right, guys. I think with that we have come to the end of the session. So now, for those of you who have, this is the second part, and for those of you who have not watched the first part, you can click here on this card and go to the first part and watch the passage explainer. If there's no card available here, in that case, on the top right, you can go to cue cards, and once you hover your cursor around that small eye there, it will a couple of thumbnails for this video should show up, right? And you can go and watch that session. For those of you who have not watched the intro and who are likewise to have not watched the intro, would like to watch the intro of the course, you can go and watch the detailed intro of the course. I talk about what is the pedagogy that we follow in this course, what is the reason why we are taking RCs from various genres, and what the methods we're going to learn, etc. You can watch that, and that's about it. And guys, if you like the content and if there's any feedback, you can I would definitely say that suggest that you guys put that in the comment section, because, well, one, it will give me some feedback to change things the way for the better, and two, because it will also provide some motivation for us to keep going, keep making more content. Okay, that's it from our side. We'll sign off here. Sluggers Blue for your CAT VRC preparation. Bye, guys. See you in the next video.